Everything that you've been discussing for the past several years on your channel has pretty much come to play out uh, as you have predicted. And it's interesting because you reminded me of the Truman Show, right? Everything is a stage, right? You have the TV.
Yes.
Everybody has to be able to see and to be able to consume the information. So they will put the information in small bits and fragments. But if you actually look behind the scene, which you have been doing, and you investigate, you are able to find a lot of information, and that's what you've been doing, and that's what you've been providing for your audience. So I think you've been doing a phenomenal job at
Thank you.
uh, giving the information in advance.
Thank you. So, what are we really witnessing? Because, you see mainstream media reporting one thing, but then when you look behind the scenes, you kind of think something else is going on. What's really happening?
Well, you have what we call, well, what they would call the first world versus the third
Okay.
world, right?
Okay.
Or the Western powers being Europe, America, and their allies ever since World War II. This is really
Mm,
the world that we live in is a post World War II era. So
okay.
post World War II, America became the superpower of the world,
Okay.
and America and its allies pretty much confiscated the world. Right, everybody had to yield to America and its allies.
Mm,
Um, the problem with that is for America, it's been very expensive, right? So that's where you have Donald Trump, for example, who has been pulling out of a lot of these organizations that America finances, right? We have, as we've talked about the last time I was on your show, America has a debt crisis, right? We're $38 trillion in debt, and that's just the government debt. So every
mm,
time America has a problem or a crisis over the last, well, really almost throughout the history of America, what they do is they'll print money, right? Especially in the last 25 years, right? So in 2000, for example, our debt was at about $5.7 trillion.
okay.
We have not had a balanced budget in many a decades. So at a certain point, you either have to balance your budget or you go bankrupt, right? And
Okay.
so America is at the point where they're kind of facing that bankruptcy status, and they're saying, okay, well, what do we do? This is the reason why Trump was elected, right? The whole slogan, make America great again, right? In his first term, if you remember, he was saying that we have poor roads, we have poor infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go out to other countries, there are countries that you would think are not doing well, but they have good roads, good infrastructure, good medical, Medicare, medical systems, and America doesn't. Right? America is behind in a lot of things. So Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again." We need to pour all our resources, pour it back into America.
Mm-hmm.
We have extended ourselves too far, right? We're spending too much money on the rest of the world, and in turn, we're not getting what, there's not a big benefit from it, right? We don't profit from it the way we used to, right? We used to have, where if we were in, uh well, I would say all of the organizations that America created were originally created for the benefit of America, right? But
Okay.
we're in a different time period, as well as the fact that people in the world don't see America in the same light, right?
Mm,
We have been fighting wars and conflicts in so many different countries around the world that a lot of countries in the world don't have a good perception of America, right? When we're talking about governments,
okay.
right? So then you have the title of this being "The Fall of the West and the Rise of the East." The West, Europe, and America are right now in a position where they are losing their power. They also are in debt, and they're in debt to other nations of the world,
Mm.
right? Europe, for example, owes a lot of money to China. If you remember in 2013, Greece, Italy, and I believe Spain and Portugal, I think as well, were facing bankruptcy as a government, right? So they were bailed out, right? China bailed them out, gave them a lot of money, but
Okay.
that money is due. They owe money
Oh,
to the
okay.
country, and you have to pay your debts, right? So the problem with America and Europe right now is that we don't produce, right? We're high consumers. We
Mm-hmm.
don't produce the things that we consume, right? So the reason Trump is in office right now is to bring back, as he has mentioned, bring back the manufacturing jobs
Yes.
to America, right? So America right now, we have to create more products. And so, but what they're relying on and hoping for is that the artificial intelligence will be able to make production better, right? To where
Okay.
we can produce things without as much manpower.
I see.
The question is, how many jobs will that create in the country? We don't know, right? And then also how much time it will take to bring these factories back to America. We don't know that, but we can speculate it might take like 5 years to build those factories and create those jobs. So it will take time for America to be able to catch itself and kind of be in a good position financially and economically. But right now, between now and then, when things kind of balance out, that's the question of how bad it's going to be, or how good it can, how good we can land the plane is what they're saying. Like economically, can we land the plane without high turbulence, right? Can we have a safe landing where there's not too much financial crisis, there's not too much turmoil in the country while we create these jobs and while we uh, kind of make America great again. So that's America, right? But now you have the rise of the East,
Yes.
Iran,
Mm.
Russia, China. These will be the countries that are rising quickly in economic status as well as uh, military status. All
Okay.
right. America and the West has had enemies around the world, as aforementioned, Iran being one of them. Now, the interesting part of where we are in the world today is that, again, war costs a lot of money, and having enemies is costly. And so, where Trump, I have to give him a lot of credit for what he's been doing.
Yes.
Uh, he has said that he doesn't believe in wars, right? And it seems that he has actually been pulling off not having as many wars as we used to have. Now, uh, what happened uh, when Biden was in office? We pulled out of Afghanistan. Well, we actually got kicked out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we lost the war in Afghanistan, that signaled to the rest of the world that America cannot sustain a war. All right, we have not won any wars since World War II. Really, we fought a lot of wars, right? Vietnam, Korea, and all plethora of other covert wars, but we haven't won any wars. And then you can't take over a nation without having boots on the ground, without staying there. Right? There's
Okay.
there's a saying that one of during the war in Algeria, the French acknowledged that the moment you leave, the moment you step away, the people take over the
Mm.
country. right? So
Mhm.
that's exactly what happened in Afghanistan. The
Okay.
moment we left, the ones that we kicked out of office took right back over, right?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so now,
Before you continue as you're gathering your thoughts, let me address this. Some
mhm,
guy says the West ain't falling. Laugh out loud, y'all wish. So what we're talking about when we talk about the West is not America, the people or the nation. We're talking about the Western Empire. So we're
right,
talking about the United States Incorporated. That was the pseudo-Roman Empire that's connected with Europe. So we hear what you're saying. America's not going where the nation, the people, the country, the landmass, but the empire. That's what people consider the empire, the United States empire, as the West. And at the same time, as that is collapsing, United States Incorporated, you have the rise of the Eastern nations. And we're not saying that they're going to take over the West. What we're saying is they have been considered a third world nation or emerging economy, and now they're rising, they're coming back up, they're reestablishing themselves as a sovereign nation, they're reclaiming their power, took their money back or their resources and gold back from the West, from the Pope, the Roman Empire, and they are now making alliances, forging alliances with other nations militarily and economically so that they can sustain themselves and prevent any type of comeback from, the West, speaking of the United States Incorporated and Europe. So correct me if I'm wrong.
no, I agree,
Minister
and
Lattimore, because you
the
are a minister.
well, no, the strategy of America has to change, and that's the thing
Yes.
is that America, like you said, cannot be the empire that it once was. Right? America, we consume a lot. We don't the things that we have, we don't produce it, and
Mhm.
that's unsustainable. Especially when you have a world where you have enemies, and if you have your enemies or competitors who are the ones who create for you, then you have a high dependence on those countries. So
Okay.
now, when you look at America versus China, right, a lot of our products come from China.
Mm.
The rare earth minerals, for example, that we use in our phones and our cars and things like that, China's the only country that manufactures the rare
Mm.
earth minerals in the world. So now, again, what Trump is saying is we need those factories here because we can't be dependent on China to produce those rare earth minerals for us. And what happened last year, actually, China restricted the amount of rare earths that they were selling. So that created a crisis here in America, may have been
Mm.
behind the scenes or whatever, but these are problems that our system is having, right? And
And
then
not
you have
just
the
that, but you
mhm,
you mentioned to me the other day that China's restricting the exporting of silver as well.
silver.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that's the situation is that we have all of our products being or a good portion of our products being produced outside of the country. And if
Hmm.
we're relying on these other countries, then they can easily cut us off. Right now, when you look at Europe, for example, uh, the war in Ukraine, in the beginning of the war in Ukraine, Europe was relying on Russia for like 70% of their oil, 70% of their energy. They blew up the pipes that were coming from Russia uh, to Europe, and that created a crisis for Europe, right? So they're having heating crises, right, and energy crises. And what people have to understand about oil is that oil is used in everything, right? First of all, oil is what we have to transport, obviously, the goods. So if the price of oil goes up, then the price of all goods go